You're just a burden now, my daughter sneered, her eyes cold as she yanked my car keys and slid my credit cards out of my wallet. She didn't even look back at me as she walked toward the door, humming like she'd already won. But the moment she tried to use them, every account froze in her hands. She didn't know that earlier that morning, I had quietly moved my entire $50 million fortune into the name of the only person who had shown me loyalty in years, my housekeeper, Maria. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know, you might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. I was 65 years old, living in Charleston, South Carolina, when all of this began. People often assume that reaching my age means you are fragile, helpless, and dependent on others to take care of you. In truth, I was still strong, sharper than anyone gave me credit for, and after everything I had been through, I had learned the value of quiet observation. But nothing could have prepared me for the kind of betrayal that would come from my own daughter, Emily. Emily was my only child. Her father died when she was 15, and since then I had poured everything I had into raising her. My money, my time, my love. I owned several businesses, invested well, and built a fortune worth $50 million. I never lived like I had that much. My home was elegant but not flashy. My clothes were simple, and the only extravagance I allowed myself was travel once or twice a year. Emily, on the other hand, grew up expecting the world to bend to her. When she turned 30, she moved back into my house after a divorce, saying she just needed a little time to get back on her feet. That little time turned into 5 years of excuses, reckless spending, and arguments. Still, I kept hoping she would change. A mother's heart does not give up easily. The cracks became obvious when Emily began talking to me like I was no longer a person, but just an obstacle. At first it was little things, rolling her eyes when I asked her to help with groceries, mocking the way I preferred reading books instead of staring at my phone, and complaining when I didn't give her money fast enough. But soon, the words grew sharper. You're old, Mom. You wouldn't understand. Why don't you just sign over your accounts to me now? You don't even need that much. And then the day came when her cruelty reached its peak. I was sitting in the living room with Maria, the housekeeper who had been with me for over a decade, when Emily stormed in. Her hair was messy, her eyes red from whatever she'd been doing the night before. Without a word, she reached into my handbag, pulled out my keys, and then my wallet. I stood up in shock. Emily, what do you think you're doing? She turned to me with a smirk so cold it made my stomach twist. You're just a burden now. You don't need these anymore. I'll take care of things from here. Maria gasped. Miss Emily, that's no way to talk to your mother. But Emily ignored her. She strutted out of the room like she had already won some invisible battle, tossing my keys in her hand as if they belonged to her all along. What she didn't know, what she could never have imagined, was that just that morning, I had already been to the bank. I had transferred every last cent, every property deed, every asset I owned into Maria's name. It had broken my heart to do it, not because I didn't trust Maria, but because I knew this was my daughter forcing my hand. And so, when Emily tried to swipe my card at the mall later that afternoon, the machine beeped loudly. Declined. She tried again. Declined. One by one, every card in her hand failed. Her smirk began to fade. At that very moment, I was sitting at home sipping tea, knowing the storm that was about to erupt when she realized she had nothing. But the story didn't start there. It started months earlier with quiet whispers of betrayal, broken trust, and a choice that would change everything. That was the day Emily's mask slipped completely, but long before she reached for my keys, there were warnings I tried so hard to ignore. One evening, I caught her snooping around my office, pretending to look for a pen, but really staring at my financial papers. When I asked her what she was doing, she said, "Just curious, Mom. Don't be so paranoid." Another time, she borrowed my car and returned it smelling of alcohol, though she swore she had only gone to meet a friend for dinner. Maria was the one who found the crumpled parking receipt in the back seat, from a casino 2 towns over. And then there was the night she brought home a man I had never met, a slick-looking fellow who called me ma'am too many times and asked questions about how much the house was worth. I remember the chill that crawled down my spine when I realized Emily was surrounding herself with people who saw me not as her mother, but as a target. The breaking point, however, came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had gone to the doctor for my yearly checkup. Everything was fine, I was healthy. But as I walked back inside my home, I overheard Emily's voice through the cracked kitchen door. She's not going to live forever. Once she's gone, everything will be mine anyway. I just need to hurry things along. The words sliced through me like a knife. My own daughter, the child I carried, fed, and sacrificed for, speaking of me like I was already dead. Maria was in the kitchen too. I could hear her voice trembling. Emily, don't say things like that. She's your mother. Emily laughed. Don't be so dramatic. I'm just saying, why wait when I can make use of it now? I froze in that hallway, my hands shaking, my heart pounding so loudly I thought they might hear it. That was when I knew I could no longer pretend. That was the moment I began to plan. And that plan would lead to the shocking scene that opened this story, where Emily reached for what was mine only to find out she had already lost everything. But what happened after that? Well, let's just say the storm had only begun to brew. And on that day when my daughter's arrogance collided with my quiet preparation, the first spark of a fire neither of us could control was lit. Because betrayal has consequences. And Emily was about to learn that lesson in ways she never imagined. That is where chapter 1 ends, with Emily storming out of my house with my keys and cards, unaware that every account she was about to touch was already gone, moved far away from her greedy hands. The question that remained was simple. What would she do when she realized the truth? And more importantly, how far was she willing to go now that she had nothing left? Emily slammed the credit card on the counter, so hard that the cashier flinched. Run it again, she snapped. The young cashier, barely out of high school, gave her an apologetic smile. I've tried 3 times, ma'am. It keeps coming back declined. Maybe you should call your bank. Impossible, Emily hissed. My mother has millions. Millions? These cards are fine. Behind her, customers were starting to whisper. The humiliation spread across her face like wildfire. She grabbed the second card, then the third, then the fourth. One by one, the machine spat them back at her. Declined, declined, declined. Her smirk had completely vanished now, replaced with the wide-eyed panic of a gambler watching her last chip slip off the table. She stuffed the cards back into her purse, stormed out of the store, and drove my car like a madwoman back to the house. That's when the door burst open, slamming against the walls so hard the frame shook. You froze the accounts, didn't you? Emily screamed, her face red with rage. What did you do, Mom? I stayed seated in my armchair, calm as ever, sipping my tea. Maria stood beside me, a hand resting protectively on my shoulder, her expression hard as stone. Emily, I said softly, sit down. Don't you dare talk to me like that. Do you have any idea how stupid you've just been? That money is supposed to be mine. Her words echoed in the living room, heavy, cruel, and ungrateful. I placed my teacup down slowly, looked at her with steady eyes, and said, It was never yours, Emily. Not then. Not now. For a moment, silence filled the room. Only the sound of the rain tapping against the window broke it. Then Emily lunged forward, her voice trembling with desperation. You can't do this to me. You can't. After everything I've been through, I deserve that money. I need it. Do you know how much I've sacrificed? Maria stepped forward, blocking her path. No, Emily. Enough. You've sacrificed nothing. Your mother has given you everything, and all you've done is take. The fury in Emily's eyes shifted to something darker, something that sent a chill down my spine. She wasn't just angry. She was dangerous. I knew then that this was only the beginning of what she might try. But before I explain what happened next, you must understand the depth of Emily's spiral. After her divorce, she had sunk into a lifestyle filled with late-night parties, gambling trips to the casinos in North Carolina, and friends who only hung around when she had money to spend. I bailed her out time and time again, paid off her debts, cleared her credit cards, even gave her a new car after she crashed the first one while drinking. Each time, I told myself, she'll learn now. She'll see how much I love her. But each time, she sank deeper. There were nights when Maria and I sat together at the kitchen table long after midnight, waiting for Emily to come home. Maria would shake her head, whispering, "Senora, you spoil her too much. Love is not always giving. Sometimes love is saying no." I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to believe that kindness alone would bring my daughter back to me. But kindness without boundaries had only sharpened her greed. So when I overheard her that day in the kitchen, whispering about hurrying along my death to claim my fortune, my heart didn't just break. It hardened. That's when I made the decision to transfer everything to Maria. Not because I didn't trust Emily, but because she had already shown me she was willing to destroy me for it. And now, standing in that living room, watching her face twist with rage as she realized she had nothing, I knew the war between us had truly begun. Emily didn't stop after that night. No, she grew bolder. She began tearing through drawers, looking for documents. She went into my office, pulled open files, and shouted when she couldn't find anything. I had already moved everything into a safe deposit box that morning, but she didn't know that. At one point, she cornered Maria in the kitchen. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she spat, her voice low and venomous. "Always hanging around her, always pretending to care. You're nothing but a maid. Don't think for a second she'll actually leave you anything." Maria didn't flinch. She looked her square in the eye and said, "It's not about money. It's about respect. Something you lost long ago." Emily slapped the counter so hard the plates rattled. "We'll see about that." I watched the exchange from the doorway, and my heart clenched. Maria had more courage than I could have asked for, and at that moment, I knew I had chosen wisely. But I also knew Emily wouldn't stop until she had destroyed both of us, or herself trying. The breaking point of that week came late one night. I woke to the sound of footsteps outside my bedroom. Quiet, careful, almost sneaky. I held my breath, listening. The door creaked open, and there, in the faint glow of the hallway light, stood Emily. Her hand wasn't empty. It was holding something sharp. And in that instant, staring at her silhouette in the doorway, I realized my daughter might not only want my money, she might want me gone for good. The hallway light flickered faintly, casting shadows across Emily's face. Her eyes looked wild, pupils blown wide, lips pressed into a hard line. In her hand was a kitchen knife, gleaming under the dim glow. "Emily," my voice trembled, though I fought to keep it steady. "What are you doing with that?" She stepped into the room, the blade shaking in her grip. "You think you're clever, don't you? Freezing the accounts, hiding everything from me. You think you can control me forever." My breath caught in my chest. Maria, who had been sleeping in the guest room, must have heard the floor creak, because moments later, the door flew open. "Senora," she gasped, then froze when she saw Emily with the knife. "Stay out of this." Emily snapped, her voice cracking. "This is between me and her." But Maria didn't back down. She stepped forward, her hands raised. "Emily, listen to me. This isn't the way. Put it down before you do something you'll regret." For a moment, the room was thick with silence, broken only by the sound of rain outside and Emily's ragged breathing. My heart hammered against my ribs. Emily's hand shook harder. "She ruined my life. She owes me. And if I can't have what's mine," she raised the knife slightly. "Emily," I shouted, the word tearing from my throat. "Look at me. This is not you. You're my daughter. I gave you life. Don't throw yours away for greed." Her eyes met mine, and for the briefest second, I saw something flicker there. Hesitation, maybe even guilt. Her grip faltered. That was all Maria needed. With surprising speed, she darted forward, grabbing Emily's wrist and twisting just enough to make the knife clatter onto the floor. It skidded under the bed. Emily screamed, shoving Maria away. Then, with tears streaming down her face, she bolted out of the room. The front door slammed moments later, rattling the windows. Maria rushed to my side, clutching my hand. "Are you all right?" I nodded shakily. "Yes, but she won't stop, Maria." I saw it in her eyes. "She'll come back." The house felt like a battlefield the next morning. The tension clung to every corner, every wall. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cold cup of coffee in front of me, while Maria paced restlessly. "She crossed the line last night," Maria said finally, her voice firm. "This isn't just greed anymore. She's dangerous. You need to protect yourself. I sighed heavily. How do I protect myself from my own child? She's my daughter, Maria. I keep asking myself, where did I go wrong? Maria's gaze softened. She sat across from me, reaching for my hand. Sometimes, love blinds us to what's right in front of us. You gave her everything, but she never learned gratitude. That's not your failure. That's hers. Her words stung, but they were true. I thought back to Emily as a little girl, her giggle when she used to chase butterflies in the garden, the way she used to curl up next to me during thunderstorms. Where had that sweet child gone? When had she turned into someone who could stand at my door with a knife in her hand? The ache in my chest grew heavier. Later that day, Emily returned. Not apologetic, not ashamed. She walked into the house as though nothing had happened, her chin lifted defiantly. I was upset last night, she said flatly, not meeting my eyes. You pushed me. Maria stiffened beside me. Upset? You had a knife, Emily. Emily rolled her eyes. Oh, stop exaggerating. I wasn't going to hurt anyone. I just wanted to scare her. Make her understand I'm serious. Her words chilled me. She wasn't remorseful. She wasn't even sorry. Emily, I said quietly, you need help. She laughed bitterly. I need money, not therapy. And you're going to give it to me. Or else. Her threat hung in the air like smoke. That night, after she stormed off again, Maria and I sat together making plans. I realized then that kindness alone would not protect me anymore. I had to outthink her, outmaneuver her. This was no longer just about protecting money. It was about protecting my life. But Emily wasn't finished. The next evening, just as the sun dipped low and painted the Charleston sky in streaks of orange and red, there was a knock on the door. Maria went to answer, but before she could even ask who it was, a man shoved past her into the hallway. Tall, broad-shouldered, with tattoos creeping up his neck, he smelled of smoke and trouble. Emily stood behind him, arms folded, a cruel smile tugging at her lips. Mom, she said sweetly, her voice dripping with false innocence, this is my friend Kyle. He's going to help me sort things out. My stomach dropped. This was no friend. This was muscle. And with him standing in my living room, I realized Emily had just escalated the game to a level far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. Kyle didn't bother to introduce himself. He walked into my living room like he owned it, his boots thudding against the wooden floor. His eyes scanned the place, my paintings, my antique vases, the shelves filled with books I'd collected over a lifetime. Nice house, he muttered, grinning at Emily. Shame it'll all go to waste if someone doesn't take care of it. Emily smirked. See, Mom? Kyle gets it. He knows how to handle people who don't want to cooperate. I sat very still in my armchair, though my pulse raced. Maria hovered close by, her hands balled into fists. Emily, I said carefully, you've gone too far. Bringing strangers into my home to threaten me? This isn't love. This isn't even family. Emily's face hardened. Don't act like you're innocent. You froze everything. You humiliated me. Do you know how it feels to swipe a card and have everyone in the store look at you like you're dirt? You made me look weak. Her voice cracked with anger. I won't let you do that to me again. So either you tell me where the money is, or Kyle here makes sure you finally understand I'm serious. Kyle cracked his knuckles. Don't make this harder than it has to be, lady. Maria stepped forward, planting herself between me and them. Get out of this house, she snapped, her voice shaking but strong. You have no right. Kyle raised an eyebrow, amused. The maid's got spirit. I like that. Something inside me broke then, not from fear, but from fury. My own daughter, standing there while a stranger threatened me in my own home. You listen to me, Emily, I said, my voice sharp as glass. You can bring all the men you want into this house. You can scream. You can threaten. You can throw tantrums like a child. But the truth will never change. The money is not yours. And the more you try to take it, the less of me you'll ever have left. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But Kyle nudged her, smirking, and the coldness returned. Come on, Kyle said. She's bluffing. Let's tear this place apart and find what she's hiding. They stormed through the house, ripping open drawers, tossing papers onto the floor, shoving furniture aside like it was nothing. Emily moved with frantic desperation. while Kyle searched with the detached boredom of someone who had done this before. I sat frozen, every crash echoing through my chest. Maria stood guard at my side, refusing to move, her eyes blazing. "They won't find anything," she whispered to me in Spanish. "You moved it all. Stay calm." I nodded, though my hand shook. After an hour, the house looked like a storm had torn through it. Paper scattered, books thrown from shelves, closets emptied onto the floor. "Nothing," Kyle growled, frustration dripping from his voice. Emily whirled on me, her face twisted with rage. "Where is it? Where did you put it?" I met her eyes, steady now despite the chaos around me. "Safe. Somewhere you will never touch it." She lunged at me then, grabbing my arm so hard her nails dug into my skin. "Tell me," she screamed. "Tell me now." Maria shoved her back, yelling, "Enough." Emily stumbled, glaring at Maria with a hatred so sharp it made me shiver. "You think you've won because she trusts you? You think you can take my place? You're nothing, Maria." "Nothing." But Maria didn't flinch. She stood tall, chin raised. "Better nothing than someone who betrays her own mother." The words hung in the air like a slap. Emily's face went pale, then red, then twisted into something almost monstrous. "Fine," she spat. "You want to play this game? Then I'll raise the stakes." Before I could ask what she meant, Kyle pulled something from his jacket. It wasn't another knife. It was a small black pistol. He held it casually, as if it were just another tool, and pointed it toward the floor. "Your daughter says you've got 50 million hidden away somewhere," he said smoothly. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell us where it is, or things are going to get very unpleasant." The room spun. My breath caught. Maria gasped and clutched my arm. My daughter, my only child, had just stood silently as a man she brought into my home pointed a gun at me. The gun gleamed under the low light of the living room. Kyle's finger tapped the side of it, casual but threatening. He leaned back slightly, his voice smooth like he had done this dozens of times. "Here's the deal, lady," he said, eyes locked on me. "You tell me where the money is, nobody gets hurt. You keep playing stubborn, and, well, let's just say accidents happen." Emily crossed her arms, standing just behind him. Her face was tight, pale, but her eyes burned with a twisted determination. She didn't flinch at the sight of the gun. She didn't even try to stop him. My heart pounded against my ribs. I was staring not just at a stranger's weapon, but at the proof that my daughter had chosen greed over blood. I took a slow breath and said quietly, "If you think pointing a gun at me will make me speak, you don't know me at all." Kyle chuckled, shaking his head. "Stubborn old lady. I like your fire, but fire doesn't stop bullets." Maria stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "Get out of this house. Right now." Kyle turned the barrel toward her. "Careful, sweetheart. I don't want to hurt anyone. But your boss here is pushing me. Don't you dare point that at her." I shouted, my voice sharper than I had ever heard it. "Maria has nothing to do with this." Emily sneered. "Oh, stop pretending she's innocent. You gave her everything, didn't you? You think I don't know? You think I don't see it? That's why you're both going to pay unless you hand it over." Her words pierced me deeper than the sight of the gun. Not just because of the threat, but because it confirmed what I feared. She knew Maria was the one holding everything now. The moment felt endless. Kyle with the gun, Emily glaring at me like a stranger, Maria trembling with rage. Then, from outside, the sound of tires screeched in the driveway. Headlights flashed through the window. Kyle cursed under his breath. "Who the hell is that?" Emily's eyes darted toward the door. "Probably a neighbor. Just stay calm." But the knock that followed wasn't calm. It was loud, firm, demanding. "Mrs. Johnson," a voice called. A man's voice. "This is Officer Daniels. Are you all right in there?" My heart leapt. I knew that voice. It was one of the local police officers who lived 2 streets down. His mother and I played bridge together. He must have seen Emily and Kyle storming in earlier and grown suspicious. Kyle stiffened, his grip tightening on the gun. "Don't answer," he hissed. But the knocking grew louder. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm coming in if you don't respond." Panic flashed across Emily's face. "Kyle, we have to go. Now." Kyle glared at her. "Not until we get what we came for." Another knock. Then the sound of a door handle turning. In that instant, Kyle made a decision, one that made my blood run cold. He grabbed Maria by the arm, yanking her forward, and pressed the gun against her temple. "Open that door," he snarled at me, "and she dies." Maria gasped, struggling against his grip, but he held her tight. Emily's face twisted with panic. "Kyle, what are you doing?" He sneered, "Making sure Mommy here takes me seriously." Time seemed to stop. My hands trembled, but I forced my voice to stay steady. "Let her go. This is between you and me." "No," Kyle said, pressing the barrel harder against Maria's head. "This is between all of us now." Maria's eyes met mine, wide with fear but filled with trust. She was silently telling me not to give in, not to hand him anything, but my heart was shattering. The woman who had stood by me for years, who had been more loyal than my own flesh and blood, was now staring down death because of my daughter's greed. The knocking at the door grew louder, and Officer Daniel's voice barked again. "Mrs. Johnson, are you safe? Answer me now." And as Kyle dragged Maria closer to the hallway, gun still pressed to her head, Emily finally realized what she had unleashed. "Stop it," she cried, her voice breaking. "This wasn't the plan. Let her go." But Kyle only laughed. The plan changed. And in that moment, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. Emily had lost control of the monster she invited into my home. Maria whimpered as Kyle yanked her closer to the hallway, the cold steel of the pistol pressed against her temple. Her dark hair fell into her face, but I could still see her eyes, wide, terrified, yet still carrying that unspoken message, don't give him what he wants. Outside, Officer Daniels pounded on the door again. "Mrs. Johnson, if you don't answer, I'm coming in with force." Kyle cursed under his breath. He turned to me, his grip tightening on Maria. "Tell him everything's fine or she's gone." Emily's face was pale, her hands trembling. "Kyle, this wasn't supposed to happen. You said we'd just scare her. You promised." Kyle sneered at her. "Grow up, princess. You wanted money. This is how it's done." I forced myself to take a breath, my voice low and steady. "Kyle, listen to me. If you pull that trigger, you'll get nothing. Nothing but a prison cell for the rest of your life." He smirked. "Only if I get caught." Emily stepped forward, panic rising in her voice. "Kyle, stop. She's my mother." He shot her a cold look. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before dragging me here. You wanted leverage. Well, now we've got it." My mind raced. I needed to buy time. I needed to protect Maria, to keep the officer outside from barging in too soon. Slowly I stood, my legs trembling but my voice firm. "You want the money, Kyle? Fine. I'll tell you where it is. But you need to let her go first." Kyle narrowed his eyes. "Nice try. You'll just stall." "No deal." Maria shook her head violently. "Don't, Senora," she pleaded, tears streaking her cheeks. I met her gaze, my own heart breaking. "Maria, trust me," I whispered. But Kyle wasn't budging. He jerked her closer, the gun digging into her skin. "Start talking. Now." The pounding outside grew louder. Officer Daniel shouted, "We're entering in 10 seconds if no one responds." Emily's panic turned to hysteria. She grabbed Kyle's arm. "No, you can't shoot her. You can't. This is going too far." Kyle shoved her off, his face darkening. "Stay out of my way, Emily. You wanted power? Then learn how the real world works." And in that moment, for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something break in Emily. Her arrogance cracked, replaced by raw, desperate fear. I lifted my chin. My voice rang through the chaos. "Kyle, you're a fool if you think you can walk out of here with a dime. That officer out there isn't leaving. You shoot, you die. You leave her, you might still have a chance." His jaw tightened. He was thinking, hesitating, and that was when it happened. Maria, in one sudden burst of courage, stomped down hard on his foot and twisted with all her strength. The gun wavered just for a moment. A single gunshot exploded, deafening in the small space. Maria screamed. I froze. Emily shrieked, covering her ears. Smoke curled from the barrel of the gun, and Maria collapsed to the floor. The sound of the gunshot still rang in my ears, a sharp ringing that drowned out everything else. For a moment, time stopped. Maria lay crumpled on the floor, her hand pressed against her side. Blood seeped through her blouse, dark and spreading. "No," I screamed, dropping to my knees beside her. "Maria, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered, her lips trembling. "Senora," she whispered, her voice faint but steady. "Don't give him anything." Tears blurred my vision. I grabbed a dish towel from the coffee table and pressed it against her wound, my hands shaking. "Hold on, Maria. Please, don't leave me." Emily staggered back, her face pale as chalk. "Kyle, what did you do?" Kyle snarled, his voice dripping with frustration. "She moved. It's her fault. You shot her." Emily shrieked. "She's bleeding." "Oh my God." Outside, the knocking stopped. A voice bellowed, urgent and commanding. "Gunshot detected. Mrs. Johnson, stay down." Heavy footsteps thundered on the porch. The door handle rattled violently. Kyle cursed, pacing like a trapped animal. Damn it, damn it. "We need to move now." Emily grabbed his arm. "We can't just leave. She's dying." Kyle shook her off. "Forget her. Forget the old lady too. We get the money or we're screwed." I looked up at him, fury burning through my tears. "You've destroyed everything. You think you'll walk out of this house alive? The police are right there." His eyes flashed, wild and desperate. "Then maybe you're coming with me. As insurance." He grabbed me by the wrist, yanking me to my feet. The gun swung toward me now. Maria groaned from the floor, her bloodied hand reaching weakly toward me. "Don't," she whispered. Emily was shaking all over now. Her voice cracked. "Kyle, stop. This isn't what I wanted. This wasn't supposed to happen." Kyle rounded on her, his voice like ice. "What did you think would happen, princess? That mommy would just hand over 50 million because you stomped your feet? You brought me here. This is on you." Emily's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw her truly scared, not for money, not for pride, but for what she had unleashed. I seized the moment. "Emily," I said sharply, my voice cutting through the chaos. "Look at me. This is your chance to make it right. You can stop this. Right now." Her eyes darted between me, Maria bleeding on the floor, and Kyle with the gun. Her voice broke. "I didn't mean." But before she could finish, the front door shattered inward with a crash. Officer Daniels and 2 other policemen stormed in, weapons drawn. "Drop the gun," Daniels roared. "Now." Kyle jerked, yanking me tighter against him. The barrel of the gun pressed hard against my temple. "Stay back," he shouted, "or the old lady dies." The officers fanned out, their eyes locked on him, their weapons steady. Maria moaned faintly from the floor, her blood pooling. Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming, whispering, "Oh God, oh God." And there I stood, trapped in Kyle's grip, staring down death itself while the police aimed their guns at him. The room felt like it was shrinking, the air heavy with fear. Officer Daniel stood in the doorway, his weapon fixed on Kyle. Behind him, 2 more officers aimed their rifles, every muscle in their bodies tense. "Drop the gun, son," Daniels commanded, his voice deep and steady. "You've already hurt someone. Don't make it worse." Kyle's grip on me tightened, his hand trembling. I could feel his heart pounding against my back. "Stay back," he shouted. "I swear I'll do it." The cold metal of the pistol pressed harder into my temple. My pulse throbbed in my ears, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had lived 65 years. I wasn't going to let a reckless boy decide how it ended. "Think, Kyle," I said softly, so only he could hear. "This isn't power. This is desperation. You're not in control anymore." "Shut up," he hissed, his voice breaking. "Just shut up." Maria groaned from the floor, her hand weakly grasping the air. Blood still seeped through the towel I'd pressed against her wound. The sight of her struggling only fueled my rage. Daniel shifted slightly, his tone firmer. "You're cornered. There's no way out. Let the woman go and we'll talk about this." Emily stood frozen near the wall, tears streaming down her face. Her hands trembled, clutched against her chest. She looked at me, then at Kyle, then back at Maria. "This is your fault." Kyle snapped at her suddenly, his voice sharp and vicious. "You wanted the money and now look what you did." Emily flinched as though he'd slapped her. Her lips trembled. "I didn't want this," she whispered. Not like this. I caught her eyes, locking onto her. Emily, I said, my voice low but cutting through the chaos. This is the moment. You can stop this madness. Save Maria. Save me. Save yourself. Her body shook, torn between fear and guilt. Daniels took a cautious step forward. Drop it, son. Last warning. Kyle's hand twitched on the trigger. His face twisted between rage and panic. And then Emily moved. With a scream, she lunged forward and grabbed Kyle's arm, yanking it upward. The gun went off, the blast echoing through the room. The bullet tore into the ceiling, showering plastered dust. Now, Daniels roared. The officers surged forward. Kyle fought like a cornered animal, shoving Emily aside and dragging me down with him as he fell to the floor. His gun clattered across the room, spinning beneath the couch. I gasped, scrambling to my knees. For the first time, I was free of his grip. Maria coughed weakly, her blood staining the rug deeper. Emily lay on the floor, sobbing, her arms shielding her head as the officers wrestled Kyle into submission. But just when I thought it was over, just when relief washed through me, Kyle's hand shot out in a desperate final grab. And he found Maria's kitchen knife, lying forgotten on the table. He wrenched free of one officer's hold and in one savage motion pressed the blade against Emily's throat. The room froze. Emily's scream strangled in her chest as the knife dug into her skin. Kyle's wild eyes darted around, sweat dripping down his face. Nobody moves, or she dies. The blade gleamed under the harsh living room light, pressed tight against Emily's throat. A thin red line already marked her pale skin where the knife dug in. Don't you dare move. Kyle snarled, his voice hoarse and trembling. Spit flew from his mouth as his chest heaved. You shoot me. She dies first. The officers froze, weapons still trained on him. Officer Daniels' voice was like stone. Son, you're making this worse. Let her go. Nobody has to die tonight. Emily whimpered, her eyes wide with terror. Kyle, please don't do this. He laughed bitterly, his grip tightening on her. Don't beg me now, sweetheart. You're the reason we're here. You wanted the money, remember? You wanted Mommy's fortune. You dragged me into this, and now look where it got us. Her tears streamed freely, dripping onto his arm. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I just wanted her to. To what? He snapped. Hand it all over? Bow down to you. He pressed the knife harder. Emily gasped, a drop of blood sliding down her neck. Stop, I cried, stepping forward. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to sound strong. Kyle, listen to me. Killing her won't get you the money. It won't get you freedom. It will only get you a needle in your arm. His wild eyes locked onto mine. For a moment, I saw something flicker there, fear, regret. But it vanished in an instant, swallowed by rage. You don't get it, old woman, he hissed. I've got nothing left to lose. Maria coughed from the floor, her voice weak but cutting through the air. Coward, you are nothing but a coward. Kyle's head snapped toward her. Shut up, he roared, his voice cracking. But Maria didn't stop. Blood dripped from her lips, yet her eyes blazed with defiance. You hurt women, you threaten children. That makes you small. Pathetic. Kyle trembled, the knife shaking in his hand. His lips curled in fury, but his eyes darted nervously to the officers. Daniel saw the hesitation. Put it down, son. That's not strength. That's weakness. Don't prove her right. Emily sobbed, her knees buckling under his grip. Kyle, please, you said you loved me. For the first time, his face cracked. A shadow of shame passed over his features. The knife loosened slightly against her skin. I seized the chance. Kyle, let her go. Show her you're better than this. Show yourself. For a heartbeat, I thought he might. His hand trembled. His lips parted, as though he might drop the knife. And then, his expression twisted, dark and final. No, he spat. If I'm going down, I'm taking her with me. He jerked the knife upward, aiming straight for Emily's throat. And 3 gunshots rang out in unison. Kyle's body jerked violently, his eyes wide in shock. The knife slipped from his grasp as he collapsed to the floor, blood pooling beneath him. Emily fell forward, gasping, clutching at her throat. The officers rushed in, kicking the blade away and pinning Kyle's twitching body. But then Danielle's voice rang out, sharp and urgent. "She's not breathing." And my heart dropped. Emily's chest was still. Her eyes rolled back. The officers had fired, and my daughter lay lifeless on the floor. The gunpowder still hung heavy in the air. My ears rang, but I could hear the thud of Emily's body hitting the floor as clearly as if the world had gone silent just for that sound. "No," I screamed, rushing forward, falling to my knees beside her. Her chest wasn't moving. Her lips were turning pale. Officer Daniels was already beside me, ripping open a small medical kit from his belt. "Move back, ma'am," he barked, his voice sharp with urgency. "No, she's my daughter," I cried, clutching her limp hand. "You can't let her die." Daniels began compressions, his hands pumping hard against her chest. Another officer knelt by Maria, applying pressure to her wound, shouting into his radio for an ambulance. The room was a storm of panic, commands, and blood. "Come on, breathe," Daniels growled, sweat beading on his forehead. I leaned over Emily, tears dripping onto her face. "Don't you dare leave me like this," I whispered. "Not after everything. Not like this." For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of his hands pressing into her chest. My heart twisted with rage and grief, torn between the daughter who betrayed me and the mother who could never stop loving her. Then, suddenly, Emily coughed. Her body jerked, her chest heaving as a rasp of air filled her lungs. She gasped, choking, eyes fluttering open. "She's back," Daniel shouted, relief flooding his voice. "Keep her steady. Ambulance is 2 minutes out." I sobbed, clutching her face. "Emily, thank God." But her eyes, glassy and wide, locked on me with something between fear and regret. Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "Mom, I didn't." Her words faded as the medics burst through the door, rushing to her side. They lifted her onto a stretcher, strapping an oxygen mask to her face. Another team carried Maria, still bleeding but conscious, her hand weakly reaching out for me as they wheeled her toward the ambulance. "Stay strong, Senora," she whispered. "Do not give up." I followed them out into the flashing red and blue lights of the police cars. The cool night air of Dallas hit my face, sharp and unforgiving. Neighbors huddled on their porches, murmuring in shock, their faces pale in the strobing lights. Kyle's body was dragged out last, zipped into a black bag. His reign of chaos was over, his choices carved into finality. For a moment, the world slowed. My daughter lay clinging to life. My housekeeper, my truest friend, was fighting for hers. And I stood in the middle of it all, 65 years old, my fortune hidden, my heart torn apart. But before I could even catch my breath, Daniels approached, his face grim. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, his voice low, "we need to talk. There's something you don't know." I blinked at him, exhausted and raw. "What now?" He glanced toward the ambulance, then back at me. "We found evidence in Kyle's car. Bank documents, transfers, plans, and it looks like—" He hesitated, as though the words themselves were too heavy. "It looks like Emily wasn't the only one in on this." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" Daniels lowered his voice to a whisper. "There's another family member involved, and they were supposed to be here tonight." The night air of Dallas wrapped around me like a heavy shroud, thick with sirens and flashing red and blue lights. I stood there on the front lawn, my slippers damp with dew, watching as the ambulance doors slammed shut on Maria and Emily. My heart ached with a pain I couldn't name, part grief, part fury, part a hollow ache that only betrayal can leave behind. Kyle's body was gone, zipped into a black bag like he had never been a living, breathing man. But his shadow still lingered, poisoning everything he had touched. Officer Daniels was still at my side, his jaw tight, his eyes darting between me and the squad car where evidence had been collected. His words repeated in my mind like an echo I couldn't escape. "There's another family member involved, and they were supposed to be here tonight." I turned to him slowly, my voice raw. "What did you just say?" Daniels looked me straight in the eye. "Mrs. Johnson, Kyle wasn't acting alone. Emily wasn't the only one feeding him information. We found bank papers, communication logs, even voice recordings. He was working with someone else close to you, Someone who knows about your fortune. My stomach twisted violently. My knees almost buckled, but I forced myself to stand tall. Who? He hesitated. We don't know yet, but we have clues. Enough to start piecing things together. Neighbors were still gathered, whispering from their yards. I could feel their eyes on me. The widow with the money. The mother with the broken family. I clenched my robe tighter around me, wishing I could disappear. Daniels guided me toward the porch steps, away from the crowd. Listen, he said quietly, what happened tonight wasn't random. They knew your accounts had been frozen. They knew about the transfers. And that kind of knowledge doesn't just come from rumor, it comes from inside. My pulse hammered in my ears. Inside my family. He nodded grimly. That's what it looks like. I wanted to scream, to collapse, to deny it all. But deep inside I knew. Families don't shatter all at once. They crack slowly, splinter by splinter, until one night it all comes crashing down. Emily had been bold, arrogant in her betrayal. But if there was another, someone quieter, someone still lurking in the dark. I wrapped my arms around myself as a chill ran through me. Do you know who? Daniels opened a folder, flipping through hastily collected evidence. Bank statements with forged signatures, emails printed on paper, wire transfer forms. My eye snagged on one familiar name scribbled in the corner of a document, and my heart froze. It wasn't Emily's handwriting. It wasn't Kyle's. It was someone else's. Someone I had trusted. I swallowed hard, my voice a rasp. This can't be real. Daniels looked at me, his expression softening for the first time that night. I'm sorry, ma'am. I know this is hard, but we need your cooperation if we're going to stop this before it goes further. The ambulance sirens faded into the distance, carrying away both my betrayers and my loyal housekeeper. The house behind me still smelled of smoke and blood. And here I stood, 65 years old, stripped of illusions. I had thought betrayal had already found me. I had thought Kyle and Emily were the worst it could get. But now I knew. Someone else was out there, plotting, waiting, and closer than I had ever imagined. The hours crawled by after the chaos. The police secured my house, photographing every corner, bagging every scrap of evidence. The rug where Maria had bled was rolled up and carried away. My furniture sat crooked from the struggle. My home, once warm and safe, was now a crime scene. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands clasped tightly together, staring at the spot where Maria's towel still lay stained with her blood. Daniels came in, his voice lower now. The hospital called. Maria is in surgery. They say she has a chance, but it's touch and go. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. And your daughter, he added carefully, is stable for now. But she'll need monitoring. They're asking if you want to be listed as her emergency contact. I closed my eyes. Emily, the daughter who had called me a burden, who had stolen from me, who had plotted to take everything I had left. Part of me wanted to say no, to let her sit in that hospital bed with nothing. But another part, the part that had carried her for 9 months, that had kissed her scraped knees, that had sung her to sleep as a child, ached to say yes. I whispered, list me. Daniels nodded, writing it down without judgment. When he left me alone again, I stared at the folder of evidence he had left behind. My hands trembled as I flipped through the papers. And there it was again and again. Transfers, documents, signatures. The name seared into my mind. Michael Johnson. My son. My youngest. The one who had always called me Mama, even as an adult. The one who had stayed quiet when Emily sneered. The one I had thought was different. My chest tightened, my vision swimming. Michael, my boy, he was the other conspirator. And he hadn't shown up tonight because he was waiting. Waiting for Kyle and Emily to succeed. Waiting for the chaos to end so he could step in, smiling, pretending he had nothing to do with it. The knife of betrayal twisted deeper than I thought I could bear. I pressed a hand to my mouth to keep from crying out. My housekeeper was fighting for her life. My daughter had tried to destroy me. And now my son, my last hope for love in this family, was the one who had dealt the deepest cut. But as the clock ticked toward dawn, a new fire lit in my chest. They thought I was weak. They thought I was broken. They thought an old woman would just crumble under the weight of betrayal. They were wrong. I had survived worse. I had built my life from ashes once, and I could do it again. And now, I would make sure every single one of them learned the cost of underestimating me. The next morning, the hospital called. Emily was awake, and she was asking for me. The sterile white walls of Dallas General Hospital closed in around me as I walked down the long corridor, the smell of antiseptic sharp in the air. Every step echoed faintly, steady but heavy, like the beat of a tired drum. My body ached from the sleepless night, but it was my heart that carried the real weight. Emily wanted to see me. I didn't know if I had the strength to face her, not after everything, not after hearing her voice sneer at me. You're just a burden now. But some things a mother can't turn away from, even when her child has tried to destroy her. A nurse led me to her room. Emily lay propped up against a pillow, her skin pale against the white sheets, a thick bandage wrapped around her throat. Her eyes flicked toward me the moment I stepped in. For a second, something passed across her face. Relief, fear, guilt. "Mom," she croaked, her voice hoarse, broken from both the knife's edge and the weight of everything that had happened. I stood at the foot of the bed, hands clasped tightly in front of me. "Emily." Her eyes welled up. "You came." I wanted to laugh or scream or collapse. Instead, my voice came out calm, too calm. I almost didn't. She flinched at that, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "I'm sorry." The words hung there, weak and trembling. But they didn't mend the cracks in my chest. "You nearly killed Maria," I said quietly. "You let Kyle terrorize this house. You took my keys, my cards. You wanted everything I had, Emily. And now you're sorry." She pressed her hands to her face and sobbed. I didn't know it would go that far. I didn't think. He promised no one would get hurt. I just wanted... "What?" I snapped. My voice rose before I could stop it. "What did you want? My money? My house? To erase me so you could sit on a pile of fortune you didn't earn?" Her sobs grew louder. "I wanted to matter," she cried out, choking on the words. "All my life, I've been in Michael's shadow. He was the golden boy. He was the one you always praised. And me, I was just your disappointment." The words sliced through me, but not in the way she intended. My daughter, my beautiful, bitter daughter, had built her entire betrayal on a lie she told herself. "I loved you both," I whispered. "But love isn't about money. Love isn't about who shines brighter. It's about who chooses to stand by you when the world falls apart. And you," my voice broke, "you chose to tear me down instead." Her hands trembled as she reached toward me. "I was wrong, Mom. I see that now. If I could take it back." "You can't." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. Emily's tears slowed, her hand still reaching. "But I can tell you something. Something important." Her voice dropped to a whisper, her eyes darting toward the door. I stiffened. "What is it?" "It wasn't just me," she breathed. "It was Michael, too. He was the one who told Kyle how to find you. How to time it so you'd be home alone. He wanted it more than I did." My stomach knotted. I already knew. Officer Daniels had shown me the papers. But hearing her say it, hearing her confess, dug the blade deeper. Her lips trembled. "He said if Kyle and I failed, he'd handle it himself. He said he had a plan." "Mom, you're not safe." "He's not finished." The room tilted for a moment, the floor threatening to fall away beneath me. My son, my baby boy, the one I thought had stayed quiet out of loyalty, had only been biding his time. I stepped closer to Emily's bed, my face inches from hers. "Why are you telling me this now?" Her eyes pleaded with me. "Because I don't want to die knowing I let him destroy you. I was wrong, Mom. Please believe me. I'm sorry." I searched her face, looking for the girl I had raised, the child I had once held in my arms. All I saw was a woman cracked by her own greed, but maybe, just maybe, starting to understand the damage she had done. Before I could respond, the door creaked open. Officer Daniels stepped in, his eyes sharp. "Ma'am," he said, "I need you to come with me. There's been a development." I looked back at Emily. She clutched my hand with surprising strength. "Be careful," she whispered, her eyes wide. "If Michael comes, don't let him near you." I squeezed her hand once, then pulled away and followed Daniels into the hallway. The corridor hummed with fluorescent light. Danielle's face was grim as he guided me toward a quieter corner. What happened? I asked, my voice low. He handed me a sealed evidence bag. Inside was a note, messy, hurried handwriting I knew as well as my own. Michael's handwriting. The note read, "If you don't hear from me by tomorrow, it means the plan failed. But don't worry, I've got another way. She won't see it coming. No one will." My blood turned to ice. Danielle's jaw tightened. This was found in Kyle's belongings. It means Michael already set something else in motion. We don't know what or when. I stared at the note until my vision blurred. My son wanted me gone. My own flesh and blood. "Mrs. Johnson," Daniel said firmly, "you're in danger. We'll assign officers, but you need to stay alert. Whoever Michael is working with now, they could be closer than we think." Closer. The word echoed in my head, louder and louder. And then I remembered something. When I left my house earlier that morning, the porch light that had been shattered during the struggle was fixed. Perfectly fixed. But no police officer had touched it. Someone had been there. Someone had already been inside my home. I staggered back, the note trembling in my hands. "He's already here," I whispered. "Michael's already here." The flicker of that tiny flame danced like a devil's grin, reflecting in Michael's wild eyes. My heart slammed against my ribs as the sharp stench of gasoline filled my lungs, thick and suffocating. Officer Daniels aimed his gun squarely at Michael's chest. "Drop it, Michael," he barked. "Now." But my son only tilted his head, smiling as though he were in control of everything. "Why should I?" he said softly. "Mother doesn't understand yet. She thinks she can give away everything, and I'll just bow down. She thinks money makes her safe. But if I burn it all, she'll see. She'll finally see." "Michael, please," I whispered, my voice trembling. "This isn't you." His eyes snapped to mine, and for a split second, I saw the boy I once rocked to sleep, the child who used to bring me wilted flowers from the yard. But it vanished in an instant, replaced by cold determination. "This is me," he said, his voice hard. "The one you ignored. The one you left behind while you showered everyone else with love and fortune. Do you know how it feels to always be second?" Daniel shifted slightly, his gun steady. "If you drop that lighter, we can talk. No one has to get hurt." Michael laughed. It was a hollow, chilling sound. "Someone always gets hurt, officer. That's the way life works." He took a step forward, the flame trembling in his hand. I could hear the faint hiss of gasoline seeping into the wooden floors. One spark, and my entire home, the life I had built, would be gone. "Michael," I cried, stepping forward despite Daniels throwing a hand out to stop me. "You think this will make me love you? Destroying everything? Killing me?" His jaw clenched. "It will make you remember me." The lighter wavered, his fingers twitching. Daniel's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "If you move that flame closer, I'll shoot." Michael's smile widened. "Then you'll kill her son in front of her eyes. Tell me, mother, is that what you want?" The word struck me like a slap. My knees nearly buckled, torn between the son I loved and the monster he had become. "Michael," I said, forcing strength into my trembling voice. "Look at me. Not as your enemy. Not as the woman you think betrayed you. Look at me as your mother." For a heartbeat, the flame dipped, his hand lowering slightly. But then, from outside, a sudden noise shattered the moment. The wail of another siren, closer this time. "Back up." Michael's eyes snapped toward the window, panic flashing across his face. His grip on the lighter tightened. And then, he dropped it. The tiny spark kissed the gasoline-soaked floor. Flames erupted instantly, roaring to life as if the house itself had been waiting for the chance to burn. Heat surged upward, the air crackling and alive with fire. "Moo!" Daniels shouted, shoving me toward the stairs. Smoke billowed around us, thick and choking. The fire spread with terrifying speed, climbing walls, devouring curtains, racing toward the staircase. I stumbled, coughing, my eyes watering as Daniels pulled me along. But over the roar of flames, I could still hear Michael's voice. "You'll never escape me, mother," he shouted from below, his laughter blending with the crackle of fire. "If I can't have your world, I'll watch it burn." Daniels yanked me toward the back of the house. The heat pressed against my skin. unbearable. Every breath burned my lungs. "This way," he shouted. We crashed through the hallway, the fire snapping at our heels. Sparks rained from the ceiling, wooden beams groaning as the structure began to give way. I looked back once, and through the haze I saw Michael. He stood at the base of the stairs, surrounded by flames, his face illuminated in a hellish glow. And he was smiling. The sight seared itself into my mind. We burst through the back door just as part of the roof collapsed behind us. Fresh air hit my face like a blessing, though it was tinged with smoke. My legs gave out, and I fell onto the grass, gasping. Firefighters were already rushing toward the blaze, hoses hissing as they sprayed water onto the roaring inferno. Neighbors gathered at the end of the street, their shocked faces lit by the flames consuming my home. My home, the place where I had raised my children, celebrated holidays, buried my griefs, and nurtured my dreams. It was all being devoured in front of me. And somewhere inside, my son was still standing. Daniel's crouched beside me, his hand gripping my shoulder. "Stay here. I need to go back in." "No," I cried, clutching his arm. "He'll kill you. He's not Michael anymore. He's something else." Danielle's eyes were hard, but behind them, I saw the weight of his duty. "I can't leave him in there. If he comes out alive, he'll hurt you again, or worse." Before I could answer, a sound split through the chaos. A scream. Michael's scream. It rose above the crackling fire, raw and furious, echoing through the neighborhood like the cry of a wounded animal. The firefighters pushed harder, water crashing against the flames. But the scream didn't stop. I pressed a hand over my mouth, tears streaming down my face. My son. The ground trembled as another section of the roof collapsed, sparks shooting into the night sky. The scream was cut off, swallowed by the roar of fire. Daniels pulled me back, shielding me from flying embers. "It's not safe here. We need to move." But I couldn't move. My body was frozen, my eyes glued to the house as it burned. Because even as the walls crumbled and the fire raged, I couldn't shake the feeling, deep in my bones, that this wasn't the end. That Michael wasn't finished. Hours later, I sat wrapped in a blanket at the edge of the street, the fire finally tamed into smoldering ruins. My home was gone. Everything inside, my memories, my treasures, my life, was reduced to ash. Daniel sat beside me, his face weary, streaked with soot. "We'll search the remains," he said gently, "but it's unlikely he made it out." I didn't answer. I just stared at the blackened skeleton of the house, my heart heavy with grief and fear. Emily in the hospital, Michael in the fire, my family broken beyond repair. And yet, in the middle of it all, one thought echoed louder than the rest. What if he survived? Because I knew my son, and I knew his cunning. If Michael was still alive, he wouldn't stop until he had finished what he started. And the chilling truth settled over me like a shadow. This was far from over.